Welcome back to Galaxy Recaps. Today we'll be diving into an action thriller franchise titled Accident Man. Enjoy the recap. A thoroughly inebriated man stumbles home late at night when he notices a luxury watch placed just out of reach. Intrigued, he uses a tiny stool to get a closer look. As he attempts to retrieve it, he is suddenly attacked and killed. This is the work of Mike Fallon, a highly skilled assassin who has made a name for himself by making his kills look like accidental deaths. Known as the Accident Man, Mike meticulously ensures there is no evidence of his involvement. His specialty is crafting murders that seem like unfortunate incidents, and all he cares about is the money he makes from this dangerous life of crime. After completing his job, Mike feels the need to burn off his adrenaline. He heads to a bar and provokes a fight. A typical bar brawl ensues, and as expected, Mike comes out on top. His skill and energy inspire other patrons to test him, but they stand no chance. Mike effortlessly knocks out all his opponents, leaving the bar silent and mostly empty, save for the aftermath of the chaos. Later, Mike heads to the Oasis, a hideout and meeting place for assassins like him. This place is home to an assortment of deadly individuals with unique specialties. Carnage Cliff, who wields an axe with brutal efficiency. Poison Pete, whose expertise lies in creating and administering lethal toxins. Mick and Mac, a duo of former Special Forces operatives who make high-profile hits look like ordinary street crimes. Jane the Ripper, a skilled and unpredictable swordswoman, and Finicky Fred, a chaotic assassin who selects his targets randomly. Overseeing this motley crew is their retired boss, Big Ray, who reminds them of the unspoken rules of their trade: never get angry, involved, or caught. As the group discusses their latest exploits, Fred mentions his new invention: sticky plasters designed for unconventional kills. In his usual chaotic manner, he randomly picks a name from the phone book to test his invention on. Meanwhile, the group begins to discuss Mike's ex-girlfriend, Beth. As the conversation grows tense and uncomfortable, Big Ray steps in to remind them of the rules. Soon, Milton, the frontman for their operations, arrives at the pub. He is the one who meets with clients, assigns missions, and ensures that the assassins only receive minimal details about their targets for security reasons. Milton hands Mike payment for his recent job and assigns him 2 new targets: a satanic heavy metal band called the Satanic Mechanics, and an accountant whose death comes with a doubled fee if completed promptly. The next morning, Mike prepares for the accountant's hit. He sets up at a vantage point with his CO2 gas-powered rifle, designed to shoot shards of glass. As he observes his target, he waits for the perfect moment. When a car passes by, he fires at its tire, causing it to spin out of control and crash into the accountant, pinning him against a wall. Confident in his execution, Mike collects his payment, knowing the evidence will lead the police to believe it was a freak accident. Moving on to his next target, Mike focuses on the Satanic Mechanics. He discovers that their budget constraints have led them to stack their amplifiers without proper grounding. Exploiting this oversight, Mike stages a technical malfunction that results in a fatal electrical accident during their performance. With his job complete, Mike heads to collect his payment from Milton. However, things take a dangerous turn when Mike is ambushed by an unknown attacker. Despite the surprise, Mike's combat skills make him an unstoppable force. Every hit he lands is calculated, wearing down his opponent. Even when the attacker brandishes a knife, Mike remains unscathed. Eventually, Mike overpowers and kills him. Always meticulous, Mike arranges the scene to look like a high-speed motorcycle accident, ensuring no suspicion falls on him. He then calls Milton to report the attack, voicing his concern about being targeted. Later that night, Charlie leaves Mike a message to inform him about Beth's sudden passing. She explains that a burglary was underway at their apartment when Beth returned home 2 nights ago. Charlie also provides details about Beth's upcoming funeral. Overwhelmed by shock and grief, Mike watches the funeral from a distance, unwilling to join the gathering. After the crowd disperses, he visits Beth's grave privately, but Charlie notices him and approaches. She informs him that the burglars responsible for Beth's death were already found dead due to an overdose. Delivering an even greater blow, Charlie reveals that Beth was pregnant with Mike's child. This revelation leaves Mike reeling. At home, Mike begins to suspect that Beth's work as an environmental activist may have made her a target. He calls in a favor and obtains the police report on the case before heading to her apartment to investigate further. As he reviews the dossier, he learns that the burglar had climbed up to the apartment and broken in through a window. Beth arrived home unexpectedly, was knocked unconscious, and then stabbed multiple times. However, something about the crime scene feels off. Mike discovers traces of a narcotic in her blood, supposedly prescribed by a psychiatrist to treat her fear of flying. Knowing Beth had no such phobia, Mike deduces that the narcotic was likely used as a truth serum. The precision and professionalism of the crime lead him to suspect Mick and Mac. Fueled by rage, Mike confronts Mick and Mac directly. They admit to their involvement, claiming it was just business. However, when Mac mocks Beth, Mike loses control and attacks them. Despite facing two skilled opponents at once, Mike's grief and fury fuel his strength. His years of training and sharp instincts allow him to predict their moves, and he holds his own against their simultaneous attacks. The fight is brutal, but Mike eventually wears them down, forcing them to back off. He warns them to stay out of his way before storming off. Determined to uncover who wanted Beth dead, Mike seeks out Milton, hoping for answers. Instead, he finds Big Ray at the Oasis, who is already aware of the fight. Ray reprimands Mike, reminding him that their business is strictly impersonal. Mike, still furious, accuses Milton of setting him up and demands to know the identity of the client who ordered Beth's death. However, Ray refuses to break the anonymity that protects their clients, citing it as a cornerstone of their business. When Mike's persistence pushes Ray too far, Ray threatens him with a hidden weapon beneath the bar, forcing Mike to leave before he's permanently barred from the Oasis. Reflecting on his past, Mike recalls his 15-year-old self bullied relentlessly during his paper route. One day, while hiding from his tormentors, he witnessed a mysterious man breaking into a nearby house. Before the bullies could confront Mike, a loud explosion scattered them. Fascinated by the man, Mike began secretly following him. Over the weeks that followed, he watched the man Big Ray carry out several assassinations. Armed with this knowledge, Mike boldly approached Ray for help dealing with his bullies. Initially skeptical, Ray saw potential in Mike and agreed to mentor him. Under Ray's guidance, Mike targeted Romeo, the leader of the bullies. One day, Mike sneaked into Romeo's house and carefully laid it a trap. As Mike reflects on his past, he remembers the pivotal moment when he first crossed the line into a life of calculated violence. After carefully laying a trap in Romeo's home, he waited for the bully to return and spot the bait. Once Romeo was lured onto the balcony, Mike, without hesitation, shoved him off to his death. Meeting with Ray later, Mike was met with a sobering ultimatum, incriminating photos of his actions, used as leverage to ensure his loyalty and prevent betrayal. Accepting Ray's mentorship marked the start of their relationship. Ray taught Mike everything he knew: martial arts, toxicology, weapons handling, and the art of elimination. But this apprenticeship came with strict rules, including never to get angry or involved. Yet now, in his quest for answers about Beth, Mike had broken both. Determined to uncover the truth, Mike meets Charlie to share his suspicions about Beth's death. He reveals that Beth never knew the truth about his line of work and presses Charlie for any information about Beth's activism that could have led to enemies. The conversation escalates into an argument, with Charlie questioning Mike's sincerity and his claim to care for Beth. Their tense exchange is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of Cliff, armed with his signature axe and intent on attacking Charlie. Mike steps in to defend her, engaging in a brutal fight against Cliff. The chaotic battle tears through the house, with Cliff wielding his axe ruthlessly. As Mike fights to keep Charlie safe, she arms herself with a knife and manages to stab Cliff in the shoulder. However, Cliff, unfazed, pulls the knife out and redirects it toward Mike. In the heat of the struggle, Mike pushes backward, causing Cliff to fall onto his own axe. It is only in his dying moments that Cliff recognizes Mike before succumbing to his injuries. The fight leaves Charlie shaken, struggling to process the fact that she has become a target. Her fear prompts her to reveal key information to Mike. Beth had been investigating an oil company. She also mentions that Beth's father's laptop might hold more details. Mike urges Charlie to retrieve the laptop immediately while he goes after Milton to find answers. Mike tracks Milton to a massage parlor and wastes no time knocking out the masseuse to confront him directly. Milton remains vague and dismissive, even as Mike grows increasingly aggressive. Frustrated, Mike punches Milton, demanding answers about who ordered the hit on Beth. Reluctantly, Milton reveals that the order came from an accountant named Leonard Kent. He warns Mike not to pursue Kent, as it would jeopardize their entire operation and Mike's ability to continue working in London. Mike, unfazed, knocks Milton unconscious and prepares to leave, but not before dealing with the masseuse, who briefly regains consciousness only to be knocked out again. Outside, Mike encounters Fred, who confronts him with a knife and one of his infamous sticky plasters. Pretending to make a bet, Mike disarms Fred with a well-placed blow using a phone book and escapes. Just then, Charlie contacts him to arrange a meeting, saying she has found more information about Beth's work. Back at the Oasis, tensions rise as Big Ray learns of the chaos unfolding. Furious with Milton for acting without consulting him, Ray reprimands him harshly. Grit announces Cliff's death to the rest of the assassins, further escalating the already volatile atmosphere. To restore order, Ray issues a chilling directive. Mick, Mac, Pete and Fred are to target Mike next, while Jane is assigned to focus on protecting a client in Twickenham. Charlie updates Mike about Panko Petroleum, the company Beth was investigating. She explains that the company recently and suspiciously obtained drilling rights off the coast of Northumberland. Beth had been receiving inside information from Archie Rudd, whose name strikes a chord with Mike. Archie was the accountant he killed for the doubled fee. Mike pieces together that Leonard Kent must have been Archie's partner within the firm. After Charlie hands over Beth's hard drive, Mike resolves to confront Leonard. Arriving at Leonard's office, Mike wastes no time, delivering a solid punch before pressing him about Beth's assassination. Leonard, threatened with being thrown out of the window, caves under pressure and reveals the name Atal Zim, a senior executive at Panko Corporation. Leonard elaborates that Atal can be found in Twickenham, and that he is the son of one of Asia's wealthiest men, who also happens to be Panko's chief shareholder. With his father battling an inoperable brain tumor, Atal is set to inherit the corporation. Leonard further explains that Archie had been feeding Beth confidential information because he cared more about the environment than profits. Atal, furious over the leaks, placed a target on Archie's back. While Beth wasn't initially involved, her efforts to contact Atal and members of parliament threatening to expose bribery within the company escalated the situation. Her boldness ultimately cost her life. Leonard claims he doesn't know who orchestrated the hit but admits to recording all his conversations. He hands over the recorder to Mike. Before Mike can leave, Mick and Mac storm into the office, opening fire indiscriminately. Leonard is killed in the crossfire, but it becomes clear that Mike is their true target. When Mac hurls a grenade, Mike skillfully kicks it back just in time, taking out Mac. However, Mick's relentless assault forces Mike into a brutal fight. Mick lands a shot on Mike, further enraging him. In the ensuing struggle, Mike bludgeons Mick with a fire extinguisher, finally ending the fight. The second movie kicks off with Mike enjoying a vacation in Malta. His holiday takes a turn when he's recruited for a covert job, eliminating a DJ who has been secretly working for the competition. Unaware of the life-threatening danger ahead, Mike prepares for the mission. During a lively party, the DJ is hyping up the crowd when he activates the pyrotechnics. Unbeknownst to him, Mike had planted additional explosives, turning the celebration into a tragic explosion that claims the DJ's life. Back home, Mike revels in his success, blissfully unaware that danger is already inside. Suddenly, an attacker strikes. Despite the surprise, Mike defends himself, engaging in an intense and destructive fight. His opponent, with superior martial arts skills, gives him a run for his money, throwing him around the room and smashing him into a television. Just as it seems Mike is overwhelmed, he yells a safe word, halting the chaos. It's then revealed that his attacker is Suing, a skilled martial artist Mike hired to ambush him randomly to keep his skills sharp. They first met when Suing was working as a waitress, and impressed by her martial arts abilities, Mike offered her a better-paying job. Suing, however, warns Mike to call the safe word sooner next time if he values his furniture. After demanding her payment for the fight, she departs with a cryptic promise to return. Though Mike has left London behind, he can't shake the guilt over his actions that led to his expulsion from the Oasis. He convinces himself that he's better off alone, without distractions, colleagues, or anyone to disappoint. One evening during a stroll, Mike spots Fred being thrown out of an establishment. Fred uses a quirky gadget to defend himself, but Mike steps in, taking down Fred's attackers and helping him escape. Both are shocked to see each other. Fred assures Mike he wasn't sent to track him down and reveals some startling news. Rye lost control of the Oasis. Mike's rampage had tarnished its reputation, leaving the organization in ruins. Fred also shares a more personal revelation. He's fallen in love with a woman he met online named Lalo. Suspicious, Mike warns it might be a scam. Fred insists it's real but sheepishly falls silent when Mike asks if he sent her money. Back at Mike's luxurious home, Fred gets a tour, only to be caught in the chaos of Suing's latest surprise attack. Unaware of their arrangement, Fred tries to intervene but gets swiftly taken down. Mike diffuses the situation with the safe word and introduces Suing to Fred. After paying her for the fight, Suing leaves once again. Fred, still determined to find Lalo, admits he sent her $50,000 for a visa and plane ticket from Haiti, only for her to disappear after supposedly flying out. Recently, one of Fred's contacts spotted her at a club in Malta, and that's where Mike had crossed paths with him. Later that evening, Fred finds himself thrown out of a shady establishment while continuing his desperate search for Lalo. Frustrated and out of options, he turns to Mike for help, suggesting they team up as partners. To prove his worth, Fred offers his technical expertise in Mike's line of work. The next day, Fred proves his value by hacking into the security system of Mike's latest target, enabling a seamless and efficient assassination. Impressed by Fred's skills, Mike agrees to a temporary partnership, warning him to keep their arrangement secret from Rye. With Fred set up at his place, Mike begins to appreciate the companionship he didn't realize he needed. Meanwhile, Fred's gratitude is channeled into making Mike's job smoother and faster than ever before. As their workload grows, Mike invests in a rundown space Fred dubs the Shambles. This becomes their unofficial headquarters, a place for testing Fred's often hazardous inventions. While some experiments succeed, most end in spectacular failure. One day, Mike teases Fred about his latest project, detonating suits. Despite the setbacks, Mike encourages Fred, calling the design genius and insisting it will eventually work. Fred explains the intricate mechanics, including explosive threads woven into the seams and flakes of explosives embedded in the lining. Their conversation is cut short when they receive an offer to eliminate Dante Zeuer. However, Dante's mother, Mrs. Zeuer, is the head of a terrifying gang Mike wants no part of. He instructs Fred to reject the contract immediately. At home, Suing surprises Mike with another attack but overhears Fred talking about Lalo. Intrigued, she promises to ask her contacts if they've seen her. After Suing leaves, Fred encourages Mike to let go of his guilt over London and stop subjecting himself to Suing's brutal training sessions. Mike dismisses Fred's concern and redirects their focus to the next target. An hour later, Fred's latest invention helps them successfully take out their mark. Just as they begin to celebrate, they are ambushed and abducted. After a tense wait, they come face to face with Mrs. Zeuer, who introduces her injured son, Dante. She explains her frustrations. Despite all her efforts to secure Dante a respectable standing in society, his vices and unrealistic dreams have squandered her plans. Dante aspires to be a pop star but lacks the talent, and his drug addiction and smoking habit have only caused trouble. Recently, his smoking got him caught in the path of an explosion, though his security team saved him in time. Mrs. Zeuer accuses Mike of orchestrating the attack. However, Mike and Fred vehemently deny involvement, claiming they rejected the contract. They even concoct an alibi, saying they were celebrating Fred's birthday at one of her clubs. Momentarily convinced, Mrs. Zeuer shifts her focus. She orders Mike to find and eliminate the assassin responsible. To ensure his cooperation, she threatens Fred's life. Later, after being released, Mike ponders the identity of this copycat assassin. Needing clarity, he heads to a bar to think. To his shock, he finds Rye there, furious and bitter over everything he lost. Mike soon learns the truth. Fred had reached out to Rye despite his warnings, even bragging about the success they've been having in Malta. Furious that Mike is securing contracts while he's been left to rebuild after losing his business, Rye announces that he's come out of retirement and is in Malta for work. When Mike pieces together that Rye is behind the attempted attack on Dante, he pleads with him to abandon the contract, revealing that Mrs. Zeuer has taken Fred hostage. Rye, however, coldly informs him that the bounty has skyrocketed to 9 million euros and is now open to all assassins. To make matters worse, multiple elite killers have already been briefed on the job, including Yumi, an old acquaintance of Mike's. Mike begs Rye to help save Fred's life, but Rye dismisses him, distracted by Dante's location, which has just been revealed via a tracking device hacked by the client. Realizing the danger of multiple assassins converging on Dante, Mike races to the karaoke bar Dante frequents. Upon arrival, he warns Dante's security team about the impending threat and discovers they too track Dante's location via the watch he's wearing. Dante, stubborn and unimpressed by the interruption, refuses to remove the watch, declaring it a classic. When security tries to take it off, Dante defiantly swallows it, proving his point in the most absurd way. Chaos erupts as the first assassin, Freya Dupree, arrives. Armed with a machine gun, she tears through Dante's security, systematically eliminating them with deadly precision. Freya then faces Mike in an intense hand-to-hand combat sequence. Recognizing him, she briefly admires his skills before declaring her intention to claim the bounty. Mike tries to reason with her, offering professional courtesy, but this only angers Freya. She redoubles her efforts, attacking him with even more vigor. Despite her ferocity and even a concealed gun, Mike overpowers her, disarming the weapon and shoving it aside. The fight continues, and Freya pulls a hidden knife, escalating the battle. Mike dodges and deflects, eventually disarming her again. Their clash leads them into the kitchen, where Dante, hilariously attempting to hide, ends up hitting Mike with a pan in a misguided attempt to help. Freya seizes the opportunity, delivering another blow to Mike's head and knocking him out. As Freya approaches Dante for the kill, Mike regains consciousness just in time, fatally skewering Freya with a kitchen skewer. After confirming Dante's safety to Mrs. Zeuer, Mike forces him to take a laxative to expel the Swallowed Watch, stopping his location from being broadcast to the rest of the assassins. Their reprieve is short-lived as another assassin, Yendi, arrives wielding a machete. Ruthless and determined to claim the bounty, Yendi launches a brutal attack. Mike fights to protect Dante, using every ounce of skill to survive. A brief escape allows Mike to lock Dante away safely. Armed with a metal bar, he confronts Yendi in a deadly showdown. Mike's agility and combat expertise give him the edge, and after a grueling battle, he seizes the machete, slashing Yendi's throat before plunging it through his skull with chilling precision. After the fight, Mike contacts Suing to retrieve his bike from the karaoke bar. He then takes Dante to the Shambles to question him about his mother's criminal dealings and why such high-profile assassins are targeting him. Dante offers little insight, only describing Mrs. Zeuer as a dangerous and evil woman who should never be crossed. When Dante refuses to sleep to aid digestion of the watch, Mike knocks him out cold. Meanwhile, unaware that Dante's signal is lost because Mike has taken him to the cliffs, Mrs. Zeuer intensifies her threats against Fred. Despite her warnings, Fred expresses unwavering faith in Mike's ability to keep Dante safe and bring him back alive. Back at the Shambles, Suing arrives and takes in the chaotic surroundings, quickly piecing together what Mike does for a living. She insists on staying to help, but Mike tries to persuade her to leave for her own safety. Before he can convince her, the arrival of the next assassin interrupts them. Recognizing Silas, infamous for his strangling prowess, Mike tries to lie, claiming Dante isn't there. The situation worsens when Poco the Clown joins them, his unsettling demeanor immediately raising tensions. Silas demands that Poco leave, wanting the bounty for himself. Poco pretends to comply but knocks Silas out from behind when he least expects it. Poco then advances on Mike and Suing, who team up to fight him. As the chaos erupts, Silas regains consciousness and sets his sights on Suing, determined to prove his pain tolerance. Poco wreaks havoc as he chases Mike through the Shambles, smashing anything in his path, while Silas goes head-to-head with Suing. Her superior martial arts skills give her the upper hand, but Silas's brute strength and relentless attacks eventually fling her across the room. Amidst the melee, Dante wakes up, groggy but alarmed by the destruction around him. The battles intensify. Poco engages Mike in a wild brawl, seemingly immune to pain as he even hits himself to show off his resilience. Meanwhile, Suing regains her footing and resumes her fight with Silas, who now fights with unrelenting vengeance. Mike manages to land a powerful blow on Poco with a baseball bat, breaking it in the process. At the same time, Suing cleverly snaps Silas's fingers to break free from his stranglehold, following up with a devastating kick to drive him back. As the laxative finally takes effect, Dante triumphantly passes the watch, ending the broadcast of his location. Poco, still relentless, charges at Mike, who tries to electrocute him with a toaster. However, Poco shrugs off the attack and continues his assault. Suing, thinking quickly, uses a chain to trap Silas, strangling him with poetic justice. Mike, meanwhile, lures Poco onto one of Fred's faulty contraptions. After a few tense moments, the device unexpectedly works, bringing an explosive end to the clown's rampage. Victorious but exhausted, Suing feels a sense of satisfaction after defeating Silas. Dante announces his success with the watch, but their relief is short-lived as Yumi, a master swordsman, arrives. To make things fair, Yumi proposes a duel, which Mike reluctantly accepts. Yumi's speed and precision force Mike onto the defensive, leaving him struggling to keep up. Disappointed by Mike's apparent lack of effort, Yumi mocks him. But Mike surprises him by requesting a rematch. Having analyzed Yumi's fighting style, Mike adapts his strategy, launching a fierce counterattack. When Yumi draws his sword, confident of victory, he moves in for the kill, only to be blown apart by Rai's shotgun. Rai, filled with fury over everything he lost in London, refuses to entertain Fred's situation and goes straight for Dante. Mike tries to stop him, apologizing for his past actions and acknowledging Rai's role in shaping him into someone who pushed people away. Meeting Fred in Malta, Mike admits, taught him the value of having people who care. Despite his anger, Rai proves Mike right by sparing both him and Dante. Instead, he destroys Dante's watch to eliminate the risk of further tracking. Surprisingly, Rai proposes teaming up with Mike to rescue Fred. He orders Dante to clean up and dress in one of Fred's suits, intrigued by Mike's casual mention of Fred's wardrobe. A while later, Mike meets Mrs. Zeuer with Dante in tow. He reports that all the assassins targeting her son have been eliminated. Ignoring Dante's complaints about Mike's methods, Mrs. Zeuer expresses her gratitude and instructs Mike to leave Malta. Mike readily agrees, eager to move on. Before departing, Mike reunites with an overjoyed Fred. Rye, however, has one final surprise. Producing a remote, he detonates Dante's suit, which explodes spectacularly. With the task complete, Rye claims the €9 million bounty but decides to share it with Mike and Fred. Together, they set their sights on building a new organization, ready to resume their old assassin ways. Thanks for sticking with the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.